Kiwi Voice on your Thursday evening. It's afternoon over in Canberra, where we have Scott Russell, who is the founder of the global. I've marked that up every time I've said it. The last 3 or 4 times I've tried. Global Freedom Movement Facebook page, which is fast grown to around 40,000 members. Thanks for taking the time to hang out with us, Scott. It's awesome to have you on board.
Yeah, great to be here. I'm actually in Townsville at the moment, but
sorry, you did say that to me early on, and I've
yeah,
already
got the top end of Australia.
So enjoying some nice, warm, tropical weather up there.
Very much so. Very much so.
Yeah. What is the temperature at 4 o'clock-ish in the afternoon in Townsville?
I think it'd have to be about 25 Celsius, something like that.
Meanwhile, we're sitting here in Christchurch, and I think it's about 7.
No,
and it's wet.
Got to
thanks for joining us. We've got a few people jumping on, so we might as well get into it. So tell us a little bit about yourself and what motivated you to get into the global freedom movement and start that group up.
Yeah, I'll give you the quick version. All right, so I was
take time.
Yeah, no, I was a minister, a pastor, just Christian, non-denominational. I stepped out of organised religion because I figured that, I'm more for just loving God and loving people. And so I was running non-profit type work in the US, feeding people and just helping where we could. And
sure.
And then saw a real move of community in that, where it wasn't so much of an organised thing, but just organic. And then, long story short, went to Portugal, started the same sort of thing, ended up having to come back to Australia for family dramas, and was at a protest. Well, I was actually down by the lake in Canberra, and I heard some truck horns and thought, gee, what's that all about? And I went up there and just hundreds of people, not too many trucks, but and it just exploded. There was a spontaneous camp happened by our National Library, and we
so was this the main big protest that we did see some coverage on Rebel News and a couple of others? Was that the big one?
That was the start of it. It started to just hundreds and hundreds of people just start turning up, camping. Now, we were on government land, so you couldn't be arrested for trespass, but you weren't allowed to camp or park vehicles, but they were doing it anyway.
It's similar to what we had here at Wellington,
Yeah. So I was going every day just because, the atmosphere was like, I saw it from Wellington, just beautiful, people
yes.
loving each other, just, nobody was shoving anything on anyone. It was just, a lot of people that had lost their homes, couldn't return to their home states, just, marriages falling apart, all sorts of things, just the tragicness of it, suicides, people that, lost loved ones from this whole thing, and nobody was giving them a voice, and, same as New Zealand. And so I was going there every night. Just, it's so addictive. You've got to be there because it's just
yes, I can imagine. Yeah, 100%.
People are just so beautiful, and then the police just came in hard, like New Zealand, brought in armoured vehicles and, LRADs. And
how long did it take for that sort of action to kick off? So we had 3 weeks here before they eventually got to that point.
Yeah, I think we probably had about 2. And they played all sorts of games, and I just sort of observed a lot of it. I just, it's funny when I've never been involved in that sort of thing, and you go and your first instinctive reaction is to get out of it. Yeah. And especially when you see, 40, 50 police or more in full, some of them in full riot gear, weaponized. They had boats on the lake with LRADs. I mean, it was dogs, armored vehicles. It was intimidating. So you start to walk away. I started to walk away. I thought, I think I need to go and get some lunch, And as I'm walking away, I'm going, Scott, you just made an excuse to yourself. And get back there. Just
gotcha.
Be a set of eyes and another camera, So I turned around, went back, and I filmed just for accountability, and the stuff that I started to see, the abuse of power, and it was just like, you don't want to acknowledge that it's happening in your country.
Mm.
So then from that, they ran him out of that camp. They told him, we've got another campground for you, which is Epic. You might have heard of Epic. And,
Yep.
and so everybody went to Epic reluctantly, and it took off there. I mean, it would take, I know on the night before the main protest, it probably took 3 hours to go maybe 2 kilometers to get into the camp.
Right, yeah.
I mean, it was just packed. Thousands of people. There was no trouble. Everybody was considerate. People were cutting each other's hair. They were just everything, handing out cash. Some people were just giving cash out to people.
Yeah.
It was like everything I've seen from New Zealand. And
yeah. When the community comes together, it just happens.
Yeah. But what had happened is the police had sort of deceived everybody, because on public land they couldn't arrest people. But once they put us at Epic, everybody was on private property.
Got you.
So now they came and they said, well, you've got to be out in a week. And it just went downhill from there. We had the rally, the main rally, which, the numbers were so vast. And, of course, the mainstream media just won't even acknowledge it happened.
Of course not.
Or if they did, it's a small group of anti-vaxxers.
Oh, yeah. 100 people.
Yeah. I think they said, we might have hit 3,000, which is because they couldn't deny it. There was, I think Google. I saw some post that someone put up about Google where you put a line around a crowd and it tells you how many people are there. And there was trees that it didn't get people in, but I think Google said there was 330 something thousand people.
Yeah, crazy.
So
crazy.
Largest protest Australia's ever seen. The authorities just were, I think they were terrified. They just came in hard afterward, the next day. So they let it happen.
Did you get sneak tactics? Like, obviously the thing in New Zealand was that it just sort of ticked along, and then there was a few little signs here or there that something was going to happen, but then boom, on that last day they came in at 6 a.m. and just basically cleared everything out. From what you're saying to me, it sounds like there might have been a little bit more communication with the police, the protesters.
Not really. At Epic.
Not really? Okay.
Well, at Epic, once everyone was out there, they had the rally. Well, they just came in and said, you've got to be gone. And they did communicate they were coming in, but I think, like you said, they came in early in the morning, and just overran it. Everyone chased them all out. And I was there filming. My battery went flat. I left the premises, and then you're not allowed back on. So I'm filming from the other side of the fence, so you couldn't see a lot of it. But I mean, I knew a lot of the people just from meeting them there that were just treated like trash, So they went to the campgrounds, and Australia. I mean, everybody in Australia can camp. It's a big country.
Yep.
So they camped in the ACT. People went out to like the Cotter Reserve and other towns like Yass, Murray Bateman, Bungendorf were an hour away from there. And I mean, and then the police, and I went out to each one of those campsites. They'd gone within the next day or two, because the police went out in squads, ran them out of these private campgrounds. If they found anyone camping in the bush, they ran them out. I was taking food and blankets and things into people that didn't have anything. We had people from North Queensland, which is tropical, down there and in the freezing and sleeping on the ground. So I was taking stuff to them, and we come across the bridge. I had a lady with me that was, an older lady that was helping. And as we come across the bridge into where the Cotter is, there's probably 50 police officers lined up, and they're just walking through the camp. And even people that had official permits to be there, they threw them out.
Yeah, right.
Then they went out to within an hour of the region, chased everybody out, threatened, harangued, did it at night. A van load of police officers. We're lucky in Canberra, you're lucky to get one police officer at night. They had vans full of like 7 to 10 officers would just come. I saw one man on the side of the road with 7 police officers all around him because he had an interstate number plate.
Right.
And from seeing that, I saw how some people continue to try to fight, and the authorities started to shove laws through to try to stop them having a voice at all.
Yeah.
Blocked roads, you're not allowed on the road. You went to your Parliament House, you get a move along order, and they can tell you you're not allowed to come back for a year. Excuse me. I mean, they just took people's rights away like that. And nobody said anything. The media's just complicit to it. It's a propaganda arm of the government.
Yeah.
So
it sounds also familiar.
Yeah. I just saw the broken spirit of people that had been so hyped up. And then, because I'm dual citizen with the US, I spent 18 years in the US, and I saw how Hagerstown started to kick in, and of course it took off over there. So I got in contact with the convoy organizer there, Brian Brazet. He was announcing us from his morning meetings, talking about Australia, and I did a protest. Well, a group came with me to the American Embassy in Canberra to thank the Americans, because you start to see if they break the Americans, they break the world. And so and then I realized, I thought, I need to try to give hope to other parts of the world, because they use divide and conquer. They try to make everybody think you're on your own and nobody else cares, and
make us hate each other. Yeah.
You're weird, and the rest of the world's all fine. So once I started to put the group up, people from Australia and that started to see how the US was really getting behind it, and then New Zealand. A lot of the New Zealanders, I mean, man, you guys got hammered.
Yeah. I shouldn't laugh, but yeah.
People were sending in footage to me when I first put the site up from New Zealand, and it was just horrific.
Some of it's brutal, some of it's pretty bloody brutal. I mean,
you guys had, and I think we did too. You have the insurgents, really, people that were just coming in from the authorities that were pretending to be
no doubt. The last day and a half, there was definitely that floating around. So I say this often. I regretfully didn't get to Wellington myself. I sat and tried to cover it as best I could from Christchurch. I had a couple of people there that were sending me footage, etc. But that unique situation, and it's the story I always tell Scott, is that I was sitting there and we did have our largest viewed news website, stuff.co.nz. It's the biggest part of the biggest media company in New Zealand. And they were live streaming from one particular angle from Parliament buildings and the crowds, etc., and had a streaming text underneath it, what was going on, step by step by step. And then on the other side, you had all these independent people, such as people like myself. We had Chantel Baker there, and Joe from Independent View, and Friend Z, and the Daily Examiner, and all these independent people there, and they were just live streaming for hours and hours and hours and hours onto Facebook. And you could look at the mainstream media story literally in real time being the total opposite of what was happening of these live streams of people with cell phones, good quality cell phones. It was unbelievable that it really, I mean, we knew, we've been enduring it for the last couple of years, really understanding how much of an arm of the government that the mainstream media has become. But this was the clearest example in real time.
We had one of the leaders that I was having a bit to do with at the time. He was telling me he woke up in the middle of the night, he heard his phone beep. He woke up in the middle of the night, they'd wiped his whole phone out except for his contacts.
Goodness.
They were using, covert stuff on their own. The Australian people were being attacked by their own government covertly.
Yep.
And then
obviously we've all seen those viral videos that have come from Oz of the pregnant woman being arrested for organising a protest, and what happened to Avi Yemeni from Rebel News, and numerous other.
Aussie Cossack. I mean, the Aussie Cossack.
He's still in custody. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, and they did it to a lot of the independent media guys that were in Canberra filming. They would come, knock their cameras over, arrest them, and they're just everyday men. They'd arrest them, put them in jail, put bail conditions. They weren't allowed back in the ACT, which is the state that Canberra's in, until after the federal election. Just every dirty trick in the book, and they're still doing it. They're still doing it.
Crazy. So, look, what global freedom movement the group. So as I say, it's up to almost 40,000 followers when I last checked.
Yeah.
You know, what are you seeing in there? Do you get involved, you know, in terms of trying to understand trends, etc., with posts and conversations and all that stuff that's going on in there?
I do a bit, yeah. It's funny because I get contacted from different parts of the world. In fact, I don't know how true it is yet, but it's odd because I've had a lot of footage coming out of Germany. We've all seen that.
Yeah.
But I had a German lady contact me, and again, I don't know her, but she's telling me that they've just changed the laws in Germany, and I guess in some of these main cities, if you protest, you're arrested.
Oh, well, that's happening everywhere, I think.
You know what she said? She said the police basically circled a group of the protesters that were in the main protesting and kept them there for 8 hours. They weren't allowed to go to the bathroom. They weren't allowed to get anything to eat.
Right.
I mean, so they just, you know, they've turned on their own people because it's all about a one world order, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. You're exactly right.
And I think as hard as that is to believe, we're watching that. I look at that guy, that Klaus Schwab, and I'm like, I mean, he's like a guy off an old James Bond movie with the cat.
He is very much the Bond villain. He is the Bond villain.
Bond, we will find you.
We'll penetrate the cabinets.
It's like, if you had to pick a bad guy, that would be the guy.
Very much so. Yeah, it's craziness, and the thing is that for so long, you know, obviously it's been a couple of decades in the making, and
it has.
You know, in various shapes or forms, it just seems so far out there, but it's so open and so. You know, it's so easy to find the information about it now. It's hard to not talk about it in a much more normal sense.
I got taken advantage of many years ago by a Ponzi scheme. You know, I put some money in, and the guy I invested it with was a good guy that was legitimate, but the guy behind him was a crook.
Right.
And I learned from that if you're going to be an evil villain, you go and you find some person that's gullible and is actually going to believe it and is likable, and you put them out there to be your front man. And I think that's what they've done here. There's evil guys behind the scenes that no doubt have evil, immoral motivations and things that they're doing, but they've gone to a lot of good people that are just naive, and they've come with a message that only seems so presentable. You know, it's all about global sustainability, and we can't keep living the way we're living. And so I think a lot of the people that are caught up in this are, you know, they like the power, but they also thinking, well, we're actually helping the world, so, you know, you're able to justify what you're doing, and in their own minds, not in our minds. And I think they're just pawns. They're being used.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of our local government people, they love the power that they've all of a sudden got. They're drunk on power, but they have no clue about the bigger picture of what's really going to go on.
Yeah, well, at least you have had a couple of a couple of videos have gone viral. There's one or two of your independent senators over there that are speaking truths. We get nothing like that at all. So I mean, at this stage, obviously, you know, Labor's plummeting in popularity, and National's going up. So you're just going from one side to the other. And and it's going to be the same situation.
But they do it here. They vote one, because it's a two-party system, really. They vote one out. They put the Labor out, the Liberal in, or the Liberal in and the Labor out, and they're identical parties. There's basically no difference between them anymore.
Yeah, it's very much like that. It's like that everywhere as well. What's happening over in Australia right now? Anything interesting? I mean, it appears from the media that I capture, and I only skim around certain bits of mainstream and a couple of some of the Rebel News stuff, etc., that things have quietened right down, specifically on the COVID front. But yeah, tell us anything of interest that's going on at the moment.
Well, they still have the COVID there, and they're still. You know, I just flew up here and on the planes. I mean, it's ridiculous. You can take your mask off to eat, but but you can't. You got to put it back on when you're not. You know, and
so you do have to wear one on the plane.
Sorry,
you do have to wear one on the plane.
Oh yeah, still.
Yeah,
not in the airport, but on the plane. Yeah.
Right.
So, but Brisbane sees a lot here. Melbourne still sees a lot, I think, of more predominantly Brisbane and Melbourne are where you're seeing most of the rallies and protests. Canberra, they kind of broke the back of what was going on in Canberra. There still are some small groups that do things here and there, but excuse me, they'll go outside of government buildings and protest, but there's no real large movement that I've seen in Canberra, and I spend a bit of time down there. But there's still people there, and they're still doing.
Yeah, I did see some media recently of something that was happening. I think it was in Melbourne, and some of the protests that we saw at the height of things over there was just, it was like 100,000 people in the centre of Melbourne. Like, it just.
Well, Melbourne was the epicenter of it. So when we protested, when it all hit Canberra, a lot of these people came up from Melbourne they were hardcore. Those people had been through. I remember talking to one of the ladies that was cooking at one of the freedom camps, and I said to her, "You've got PTSD, you know that, right?" And she says, "I know I do, but I just don't know how to." They've had family members where the police actually chased people and shot them with rubber bullets,
right,
and beanbag guns. I mean, they didn't use it as self-defense. No, I think it was. There's even footage of it at the shrine, at one of the Anzac shrines.
Yeah, I've seen some of that. Yeah.
The police went running into the crowd with guns, just letting loose on the protesters. You probably saw the one where they knocked over the woman that had to be like 70.
Yeah, I just revisited Battleground Melbourne about 4 or 5 nights ago. I decided to watch it for a second time, and it's epic. That's the wrong word though, not epic. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Dan Andrews, the premier of the state, is just completely drunk on power.
Yeah,
and
not a fan of this.
The cronies that have put him there and keep him there are shameful. They're more interested in their own narcissistic pleasures than they are in the people.
Yeah,
and those poor people from Melbourne. I mean, they are just. When they first set the camp up here, this lady come in from Melbourne and she's like, "All right, here's what we're doing. You're going to do this, this, this." The one at the National Library, there's going to be a lot of gossip. We want accountability groups. We want this. We want that. We want kitchen. It was like, wow, this she's the real deal,
Yeah.
So the rest of Australia is kind of still asleep, and they were fighting for their lives down there. Yeah. And they've lost. Someone was telling me they were just down there. So many businesses just closed, gone. And of course, what the government's doing is socialism, really, in the sense of they just put people on government payroll. So a lot of disability workers come here. So they put them on, and then they're able to fudge the figures because they say, "Oh, look, the unemployment figures it's ever been." Well, it's not the best it's ever been. It's because everybody's working for the federal government.
Yeah, most lockdown city in the world, I think it still officially has that title in terms of the number of days under full lockdown. I mean, that was where I got most of my footage. I saw bits and pieces from Sydney and Brisbane as well, but predominantly all the stuff that I was picking up on independent media was focused on Melbourne and obviously Battleground Melbourne. Wow.
Melbourne was ground zero. Yeah. The other thing I found running a global group, which I'm sure you've seen, because I start to see America and New Zealand and Netherlands, the police, Canada, they all learn from each other. So they're following a playbook. Whosever playbook it is, what they do here, I have a lot to do with the Canadians, and they were saying at the same time, we would do it here, and within a week it would be happening in Canada, and then of course New Zealand. And I mean, I was kind of hoping that New Zealand picked up again, and because they seemed like they got so broken by what the authorities did there. It was like everybody was in hiding. But this last weekend, some of the footage coming out of New Zealand, it was like brilliant. I mean, the Kiwis picking up again.
Yeah, they did. It was one of the bigger weekends for sure. The weekend that's just passed. So the Freedom and Rights Coalition is our biggest protest group in terms of organising this stuff. Unfortunately, they make them. Sorry,
I think the last time I looked, there was more New Zealand followers on the global freedom movement than Australians.
Nice.
We're
pretty passionate about it.
Yeah, sure. It was Canada, the US, and then New Zealand.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome. You know, unfortunately, the mainstream media is hooked on to the church status of the organisers of the Freedom and Rights Coalition. Now, they've never pushed it. It's an independent church, Destiny's Church. Now, they've never pushed anything to do with that at any protest at any time. This is a whole separate thing. They're doing an amazing job, and a lot of people support them, but it's the persistent narrative through the mainstream media, every single article, because there's a lot of coverage in the mainstream about these protests and about this protest group. It's always Destiny's Church, it's this pastor, blah, 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 and it starts from
serious.
And they try and slander whatever way they can.
That's the only, globally, that's the only church group I've heard of that's really got involved. Now, I'm seeing in the US some of the church groups try to putting stuff on our site, but they just want to advertise their church.
They want
to put on, and I won't allow it because it's not what we're there for. So they want to stream their church service or something, and you know, it might be a wonderful service, but it's not why we're there. I went to, in Canberra, I went to, there's a church organisation that's right across the road from Epic. I mean, I went across there to ask for help for, you know, when the people getting thrown out. I said, we don't want to camp here, but could the people just regroup here? They said to me, we don't want anything to do with those people. Our directors told us that we have nothing to do with those people. We won't help you. Please leave. And I said, you people are disgusting. If you think that that's God's attitude, Christ's attitude, that's disgusting. I went to another church that was in our city and asked them, at the time they needed blankets and things, and I said, look, could you help? Could we get involved? Food. These people have been, they're people. One of them said, well, one of the organisations said, well, they should have come prepared with blankets when they came down here. I said, but these people have lost everything. Some have homes.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I was so disgusted with it. And another church, I'd gone to a few times, and I was, you know, just, I don't attend organised religion, but I went for a bit. They threw me out because I asked them to come and help. They said, don't come back. We don't want you here. You think you're better than us. I'm like, I don't think I'm better than you. I'm just saying. God.
An opinion that's different to you.
Oh, you know what it was? They were looking for every reason they could to do nothing because these people were genuinely in need. And they said to us, well, we've got people in our church that don't agree with these protests. Yeah, so you don't take sides. You're there to love people. Just go and love them. No, you think you're better than us. I don't think I'm better than you. I'm just doing what's right morally.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised. I haven't seen a lot of churches. I did start to see a lot of people in Epic that were just believers. They were meeting in people's homes and things, and they just turned up and they were just loving people. They were brilliant because they're not about another system and trying to promote their organisation. They were just there to love people. And I mean, so I think the government's probably figured too that if we can keep the church out of this, we won't have too much, you know. And
I could imagine it would definitely be in the thinking. Absolutely. Do you have? We'll get close to closing off there, Scott. We had almost get close to half an hour, so it's good. What are your thoughts going forward, in Australia, based on what you're seeing in the group and just your general thoughts involved in protests, etc. But in the near future, what do you see happening in the next year or so?
I think the biggest problem Australia has is the she'll be right attitude, which I know the New Zealanders understand. Yeah. So a lot of the Aussies are like, oh yeah, well maybe it's going on, but it'll be all right. She'll be right. It'll never happen here. Yeah. My take globally, and I think that I have a friend that used to assess countries for the World Bank, and a good economist, mixes with some of the top ones in the world. I mean, their talk is that the economy of the world's gone.
Seems that way. Yeah.
These guys felt that it was going to go regionally. I think New Zealand will be one of the first, to be honest, because you're a smaller economy and you're still under such draconian measures. But I think that's our next challenge in the next year or two here. We're going to see major inflation. We're already seeing that, but we're going to see it even more. I believe we're going to see a currency collapse. And I think the WEF is going to be swept away for a time, because I think the world's going to wake up to it. But I think then I believe the economies will collapse, and then probably it'll take them about 3 years to regroup. And then I think hungry people will do anything. They'll come back in and say, you know, okay, we've got the answer, but we need you to start doing these things, take these marks that we're telling you, do these things that we're telling you. I know in Canberra, one of my friends already has a man that works next door to him that has the chip implanted in his hand.
Yeah, right.
He goes into the shop and scans his hand.
Yeah. Why would you want to get to that point? I don't know. And look, yeah, I feel you. It's you know, there's so many signs pointing towards definitely an economic collapse from all angles that we can see. It's happening in the States now. I can see the signs here in New Zealand. So
you know what?
Yeah, tough times ahead.
Can I say something quick on that though, for hope?
Sure.
I mean, I think what we saw in our camps, freedom camps in New Zealand, America, Canada, here, everywhere we've had a freedom camp in the world, it's been the same spirit. Yes. And it's people coming together in spirit, not in organized religion, organized anything. It's just organic moving of the spirit in each of us. And
yes,
I think that's the answer. And I believe as we see an economic collapse, we're going to see a lot of community where people are just going to do, instead of acting in fear, they're going to act in faith, where it's going to be, you know what? Hey, in fact, there's a man here I know in Wollongong.
Yeah.
He's prepared his family, and he's actually prepared for his neighbours. He said, some of my neighbours don't even believe this is happening. He's laid up food and all sorts of things in his home for his neighbours.
Yeah.
And tell me that's not awesome, huh?
No, it is. That's fantastic, and you're exactly right. I feel that's why spiritualism has come into my life more so in the last 12 to 18 months, with meditation and yoga and breath work and all that stuff. I think that's the answer. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
I think to me, because I've come out of organised religion, but I love Jesus. I'm very spiritual, but I think the difference is. Religion tries to put things into people where the spirit brings out what's God's working in them in some way and reveals that. And I think for me, a lot of these teachings and different not cults, but they're called cults by the mainstream. I think a lot of them are just people's desires for spirituality, but I like to call it the God romance. Just respond to the God romance like you would if it was the woman that was coming into your life. Respond to the romance. You don't need a system to tell you what to do. You need to pull into God, respond to his romance, and you'll end up where you need to be, and you'll end up doing what you need to be doing. If you're feeling like you need to prepare something, then prepare.
That's bloody well put. That's an awesome way to finish, I think, Scott. Super positive after predicting dark times ahead. That's a great way to finish. Hey, look, it's been awesome talking to you. Really easy to talk to. We've gotten almost up to 35 minutes. So appreciate your time. We'll chuck a link to the Global Freedom Movement group in the description of this video once we've posted it. But yeah, thanks for hanging out with us.
One quick one from Australia. Yeah. The Aussies and the New Zealanders, we're all pretty close, really. So you guys understand it. We're all for you. Stand up and roar, New Zealand. Stand up and roar.
Awesome. Yeah, we're with you as well, mate. 100%.
I think as you guys roar, it's going to make Australia start to stand up a little more too.
Fantastic.
So, all right. Hey, thanks for having me, huh?
No worries. We'll keep in touch and we'll have you on again later on down the track.
Look forward to it. God bless.
Good ass. Cheers, mate.